Interruptions are tests. If you're like me, interruptions are not something you relish. My idea of happiness is having uninterrupted time and space to go as deeply into something as I like. And when interruptions come, they often jar me and I react. This is one of my little stresses. So whenever I react to something, basically what I know is going on is that I'm believing some kind of thought. And all I have to do is find that thought and question what I'm believing there in that moment to open up a new experience for myself. Therefore, interruptions test me to see what stressful thoughts are in me still sitting left for me to question. I did some work on interruptions recently, and in case you're not familiar, I use a simple approach called the Work of Byron Katie. In this case, I used the work and I found a situation where I was interrupted in which I noticed a really clear reaction, like stress reaction. For me, that's the smoking gun, letting me know that somewhere inside I'm holding on to a belief that's arguing with reality. So I noticed the stress, and then I didn't have to look very far. The thought that came up is, he's interrupting me. That itself was the stressful thought. And so I tend to question these simple, obvious thoughts. Sometimes I can spend a lot of time trying to get really deep and find the perfect thought to question. But more often than not, I find that the first thought that comes into my mind when I say, what is it that's bothering me? What is the thought in this situation? That thought, simple as it may be, is a perfect one to question. So I went with this one. He's interrupting me. And when I questioned this thought, I saw how stressful it was to hold that thought and how interesting it would be if I didn't see it that way, even if the same events occurred. I soon saw that interruption, the idea of interruption, is really a concept. It's a concept that I define. And it really means that anything other than what I'm doing is considered an interruption or an obstacle or an imposition. And somehow when I believe this, I feel justified in being angry at the interruption. I feel like I need to protect myself from interruptions. But what if I saw it differently? What I discovered in this process of self-inquiry is that I don't have to define something as an interruption. That's something I do, so I have a choice there. It's like when I'm meditating. If I notice that my mind is thinking other thoughts in my meditation, then I just gently come back to the meditation. It's like I just notice it and then I come back. So the thoughts are not really an interruption to my meditation. They're a part of the meditation. So what if I thought of any interruption as a kind of integral part of the situation, as worthy of attention as my original task? When I think about all the pathways that my life has taken over the decades, I see that everything I value today was, at some point, an interruption from what I was doing previously. I thought I would live a typical life when I was young, but that idea got interrupted by my interest in meditation. And I found myself living in an ashram for some years. And then when I thought I'd spend all my days in the ashram, my grandmother's needs interrupted me. And without those interruptions, I wouldn't be where I am today. So this happens on the micro level, and it also happens on the macro level. Small interruptions, big interruptions. What if I saw them all differently, not as interruptions, but as a part of the flow? It all depends on how tightly I hold my focus. I tend to hold my focus quite tightly, and because of that, interruptions jar me. I'm super focused, and then something coming from outside tends to shake me because I'm so attached to what I'm focusing on. But what if I held that same focus more loosely? If I did, I could move with the interruptions and feel less of a shock. It's just like a flexibility and an ability sway when something moves me from the side. So this doesn't mean that I won't continue to find quiet places when I want to focus, but it's just something interesting to notice. And it came out of my doing the work that it's really up to me how I frame it. I can dig deeper too. To find more stressful thoughts to question, I can ask myself, why am I so attached to doing this without interruption? What am I needing? What am I wanting? Answering these questions in specific situations can help identify my attachments more clearly. Attachments are just thoughts, and these thoughts can be questioned. There's no stress without attachment, no stress without a want or a need. When I find what I'm wanting, what I'm needing, what I'm attached to, and I question it, then my attachment often loosens. And that's a setup for more flexibility with interruptions. So I'll end with a quote from Byron Katie. As you inquire into your thoughts, you discover how attachment to a belief or story causes suffering. The mind's natural condition is peace. Then a thought enters. You believe it, and the peace seems to disappear. You notice the feeling of stress in the moment, and the feeling lets you know that you're opposing what is by believing the thought. It tells you that you're at war with reality. When you question the thought behind the feeling and realize that it isn't true, you become present outside your story. And that's from A Thousand Names for Joy, one of Byron Katie's books.